Everybody, welcome to the episode of Fight Chat Friday. This is episode 145, and we're going to look at the minus 57 division from the senior male at the European Championships in Romania. So, this is not actually the final, but it is between the same two countries, Spain and Ireland. We have Finn Martin from Ireland, and we have Dael Duran from Spain. This one, very interesting, and a lot of interesting things to look at. I'm sure if you're watching this one, you're going to take a lot from these two guys who are very exciting to watch.
For sure. Let's jump right into it. And I think the first thing we can say about this fight is compared to maybe the last couple that we watched, and maybe Doyle's given us a preview with the pre-game routine. Uh, the number of interactions, the number of techniques that are thrown, the number of attempts is far higher. So the overall tempo and intensity of the match from start to finish is significantly higher than the last couple of matches that we've watched.
Yeah, generally, like the lower the weight category, the more speed they have, which means usually they're a little bit more fiery, a little bit more intense in terms of the volume. But this one definitely stood up to that. And we see straight off the bat, using one of our principles we always talk about, Finn getting his leg on top. Both of these guys looking to get the front leg moving often. And if you're the person who can have your leg on top, obviously Finn is quite flexible and has the posture position to be able to do that as well and flick it over the top quite easy, which gives him a little bit of advantage on the front leg battle at least.
Now, there is a difference between the two boys as we look at their front leg, where Finn is using the front leg as the not just a tool to close and maintain and control distance and tempo, but also as his primary scoring threat. Whereas I think Doyle really is using the front leg to that degree, to some degree for that as well. But he
Yeah.
is really using it as his entry shot to let him open up and pull other shots out of the bag.
Yeah, and here we get the first opportunity of Finn to get the hands. He gets his front lead foot to the outside, which is very important, which allows him then to get the hands and to be able to push his opponent backwards. He actually gets a warning for this. There's a little
Foul
sequence here
even.
where a foul, sorry, but three. Here we go again. Now Dial gets a warning for this as well, and I don't really know why. From my point of view, that was a great
No.
move by him. He closed the distance off the restart. We spoke about it recently, how important those restarts are, especially if you're looking to turn the tide and trying to change things up if it's going a little bit like status quo and like for example, here's another warning as well that I don't agree with, to be honest. I don't know
No.
why that was a warning, but yeah, so far it's a close one. Finn leading it, just clipping a couple of headshots, I think, so far, just a few flicky ones over the top.
Yeah, I think giving credit for one of them, certainly from one of those earlier clash and lift exchanges. One of the things where we've seen, particularly with the the comment I've given on this, and it's fooled me three times, Shane, both of us, it's a Stephen King quote, but we've had an interaction now where Doyle has pushed forward a side kick with contact three times. Finn has kind of been clipped the first time, clipped the second time, and it's like, oh, okay, no, I'm not giving you the third bite of the cherry there. I'm going to do something about it. But going back to that, we're seeing compared to Luke Moriarty previously and, Adelina before that, Finn doesn't throw the hacks. Typically, he doesn't
Mm.
throw much of it. He actually goes with the far more side facing, either the turning kick over the blindside shoulder or the hook kick to over the open side. And compared to some of the ones we've watched previously, that is actually a fairly significant difference, and it tells you a lot about how he chambers and prepares his shots.
Yeah, I think it's one of the highest divisions with a left leg lead as well, the 57s. Generally, there's a lot of left leg leads in there, so obviously suits him as well to have that. We do see a lot more left leg leads coming in as well. The higher you get up the rankings, we'll speak about that another day. But a little bit of a clash here again, getting the hands, and I think that now Dial is really starting to kind of find where he's going to have his success. He's getting a little bit of success here off the restarts, which is quite important, and he's coming to the outside, which is getting him a little bit of a return on the scoreboard, and he's starting to claw it back a little bit. Now, like as
Yeah,
well, clawing it back a little bit is harder to do when you're looking to score with hands after someone's after kicking you in the head. But we do have Finn as well racking up a little one foul and a couple of warnings as well, which does make an impact.
yeah, I think the match is at 2-2 at the moment. I think it's actually dead level. Um, but we're starting to see where those slight differences in style are mattering. Finn does get the benefit of a couple of times where the front leg is just up there as Doyle looks to close the distance, and it's not always the cleanest side kick that that lands, but it does get contact on the body and gives the judges the opportunity to score. We're going to see this again. And Richie, you said beforehand, because it's like there was three times when Doyle took that particular shot, there probably is a little bit of an adjustment, from him prior to the restart. and we'll see that. I'll flick back to it again. But you can
But
see a shortening of the stance and a pulling up of the back leg before the referee says C-Jack.
yeah, we even see on the last restart actually. But let's have
Yeah,
a close look here. Watch Doyle. Does he step in a little bit? He does. Bump that half little extra step. We didn't see that, but we kind of just had a guess that would probably be the case because he's able to come over it pretty fast, and that's the reason he's taking that extra half step. Let's see, does he do it here on this restart step? Okay, but
yeah.
time is, or sorry, they're getting switched, so he doesn't have the opportunity to use it to a surprise. But that's an interesting little way that he's able to close the distance to make restarts more effective for him.
And we've returned again to the pattern of the match where it has been that case of testing of the little carry. Um, and this is one of the differentiators. So this is where things have started to get a little bit of trouble. This is something that Finn does that's a little bit different, where he can often clash and go up. And we see
Mm.
this with the like female 45s and so on. Like you would have seen that with Taylor Smith, with Tyra Barada, and so on, where sometimes you clash with someone, the leg just continues to go up. And that's a problem that you get with Finn sometimes, that he shortens his stance, he gets the leg high, and you kicking into his chamber just lets him lift his leg higher again. And he's been able to throw a blindside turning kick or a little bit of a hook hacks variation in on top of that. We spoke beforehand about Doyle. Perhaps, he's got a 2-1 lead here, but he don't think he's conscious enough of the warning situation.
Yeah, like this is where the experience comes into play because Finn now is racking up the warnings. He's actually on 8 at the moment, Adrian. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So one more warning is actually going to be very beneficial for Doyle, but he's the one who's actually kind of on the back foot. I think he realizes only now maybe he's starting to push the pace a little bit. But for me, he starts to take the foot off the gas with a minute to go, where he was actually starting to have success in the match for the first time, and everything was swaying to his favor. And then time for Finn to put it on, exit for Doyle, and that flips the script. Now that changes everything. It means time's running out. Doyle has to go forward, push the pace. He goes forward here, has to go for it, and then boom, gets clipped onto the head, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very certainly that element of, I think the scoreboard can be your enemy sometimes when you look at it like that. And I think even at the point when Doyle is taking his foot off the gas there, I think scorecards wise, it's 3-1. But he has a 1 point lead on the scorecards that he has, and he's sitting on, I think he was on 5 warnings. So I think that was his 6th. I'd have to check the stats again, but he was in the same position effectively as Finn, where he's on 2 warnings waiting for his 3rd. And we have a game with 1 minute left that is tenuously close, 1 point game, both people sitting on 2 warnings. And like, I think in that situation, you want to just fight this out for another 30 seconds and see where it gets to. So maybe if Doyle approaches this, I'm going to try and force Finn to be the one who takes that warning. Okay, now it becomes a different situation because maybe he goes to that 2 point lead on 3 cards, and now Finn needs that headshot to make his way back into it. That's a better time to maybe risk circling the ring and face the possibility of losing that warning. And you might even, if you have that 2 point lead, choose to take the warning.
Take that extra one, yeah.
Because you
By
can now
gaining the
take
first,
3.
you can, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So by gaining the warning on the opposing side first, you have the luxury of taking it if necessary down the line. Yeah, good point. Like I think that for me, he was just starting to get success with what he was trying all match. He was trying different things, and to be fair to him, he wasn't sticking to his guns in terms of like, okay, let's stick with this, stick with this, stick with this. He was very adaptable and variable, and he was finding different ways to come up with the problems Finn had. Starting to get a little bit of success in the second round, and then he takes his foot off the gas just as it was working for him. So, stick with what's working for you. I think is the motto there, and always be aware of the scoreboard situation as well, because that extra warning there is so important. And when the time is running out and the time is not on your side, then it's more pressing. Where when you have that full minute left, there's a bit more of a leeway for you to make a difference either way. Whereas when it's that 7 seconds left, like we've seen at the end, then it's do or die. It's too late.
And of course, it took a couple of seconds to register the change in the scoreboard, whether it's the coach shouting or you just taking that look. And you could see in that few seconds, Finn had thought he still had to push, and even pushed in there a little bit. And that would have been a great decision. I'm assuming he didn't know he didn't need to push, but maybe he actually did read the scoreboard. I don't actually know, of course. But if he recognized that, you're not pushing me, well, I'll push you back, and now I've got 7 meters of the ring behind me to escape into, as with 4 seconds left. That's an eternity of space, when you're in that situation. So it left him with a safe out. So let's have a little bit of a look at
good match for
our
sure as well.
stats.
Very exciting one. And as we look at the stats, you can see that why it was so exciting. Lots of volume, lots of action, and a lot of contact as well. Generally for each technique, so we see both bars for each technique or each action, let's say, are quite close. The only ones that have a little bit of disparity, obviously, are the carries, which is always the
Yeah.
case. But still, we see the guys making a little bit more contact with their carries than we've seen in previous fights that we looked at, maybe the last 4 or 5. Side kicks for Finn, I think, very telling. You know, if he's banging in them 10 side kicks there, they were defensive and attacking. If he
Yeah.
was to get those in, they were very valuable. And of course, you have the Dalian Chagis over the blindside shoulder as well, and the warnings are a telling point. Doyle tried to get the hands a little bit more. He did have much more success when he did, I think, especially off restarts. So that was where he was getting his best value. But, like we always say, if you're getting the high value scores with kicks, especially head kicks, and the other person is only matching your return with hands, it's going to be the kicker who wins out there, even though it was very, very close in the end. The kicker will have that little bit of advantage.
Yeah, but I do think there was a huge story in the overall volume of attempts. So, when we're looking through um, from the number of shots attempted, we're talking about something in the region of 45, 50, per person. So we're having, if you kind of have each one as an engagement, and of course some of them overlap, you're certainly looking at over 2 2-minute rounds, 30 to 40 actual clashes or engagements. That's quite a lot when you play it out yourself.
Yeah,
So uh, what happens if one can't match the other's rate? Obviously, we're going to get this
exactly.
slipping. So this was a close match with with scores, and a lot of these contacts don't result in scores. But if one person fell behind on the tempo or couldn't hang with the opponent's tempo, I think we would have seen a landslide in this match.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, obviously, these guys are quite good, both competing against each other in the semi final of the Euros. Both guys are up to scratch in terms of the level, so they're able to match it. They're fit enough, they're able to go stick with it. But you can see a lot of people break down there, especially, and we've seen a lot of people who are like point fighters as well. They try to reduce the intensity a little bit, and if you have somebody who's up and down intensity with good volume and good actions, chances are it's going to sway in their favor most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, for me, some of the take homes from this one: level of intensity or tempo of the match, really high from both people, savage to see. I think if you watch this back again, and in particular with some of those slow motions, you can see the evolution and thinking through. And I give a lot of credit to Doyle on this side of things, where he addressed the problem several different times. You can see the
Yeah.
evolution of his thinking and his problem solving within the match. And that's a really impressive skill to see, and to see it developing that way as the match goes on. It didn't result in the overall win this time. And I think Finn's efficiency in terms of finding those sidekicks and the occasional from the clash being able to go up and finish higher, leading to the a headshot with the blindside turn kick or hook kick, I think in the end told the difference. But you can also see where Finn is very, very close to losing his third point from warnings. So he does need to put up those big head scores to avoid going behind on the warnings. So a really interesting match for me.
Yeah, definitely. All the principles that we speak about time and time again. If you're using the hands, you need to have way more volume. You look for those high value scores as well. For Dial, he was looking for the restarts, which is something that we've noticed now in the last couple of fights because of the analysis and the stats in particular. The
Mm.
restarts can be a valuable place for you to kind of have an advantage. Most of the time, we're looking at 15 restarts, and obviously, the higher volume and the higher warning count, the higher opportunity for that as well. So it's important to have a strategy or to have something that you're going to plan to go from a restart.
Excellent. So, folks, that's us this Friday. Join us next Friday, where, again, we're not entirely sure yet, but we might go and tackle that European Cup if we get time to have a look through some of the matches. Or, of course, if you want to do the hard work for us and find the good ones to watch and analyze, please send us a link, let us know what's good, and we'll get back and look at it. The disadvantage of not having been there in person, of course. Looking forward to tackling some of that over the next couple of weeks. That's us for this week. See you next time.
See you in the next one.